I drove heavy transport rigs for over 24 years. I wasn't doing short regional runs either. My assignments were strictly cross-country, those long, solitary hauls that drag you through the quietest veins of the country in the dead of night. I've navigated blinding blizzards in Wyoming and sudden flash floods in Oklahoma, so I am not a person who scares easily. But what happened to me during a freezing winter night in 2011 on Route 119 through Mingo County, West Virginia, still shakes me to my core. I was hauling a heavy freight load eastbound toward the Virginia border. It was roughly 3:15 in the morning when I spotted a vintage, matte black sedan pulled over on the right shoulder of the highway. Its headlights and hazard indicators were completely dark. As the powerful beams of my truck swept over the vehicle, I caught sight of a figure sitting perfectly upright in the driver's seat. Both hands were gripped tightly on the steering wheel, and the person was staring dead ahead into the pitch-black woods, completely motionless. About 30 minutes later, a mechanical warning light flashed on my dashboard, forcing me to pull over onto a wide gravel turnout to inspect the engine. I had barely stepped down from the cab when I noticed a pair of headlights approaching from behind. It was the same dark sedan, moving at a crawl. The driver's side window was rolled all the way down despite the freezing 40-degree temperature. As it passed, the driver stiffly turned their head toward me. The face was a smooth, unnaturally pale blur with zero expression. The car didn't stop, it just glided forward into the dark. My logical mind tried to dismiss it as a strange coincidence. But an hour later, as I neared the state line, my high beams caught the exact same sedan parked on the left shoulder. The moment my truck closed the distance, its headlights snapped on. It pulled into my lane, matched my speed precisely, and stayed exactly 300 yards ahead of me. The second we crossed the state line, it blinked its indicator, veered into an isolated rest area, and vanished. I pulled in right behind it, determined to get a license plate or see who it was. But when I drove through the lot, the area was entirely empty. A few hours later at a truck stop, I recounted the event to an old-timer. He looked at me grimly and said, "The question isn't whether he was following you. The question is, how did he know exactly where you were going? And how did he keep getting there before you?" I've been a highway patrolman in Western Maryland for 16 years. Most of my nights are spent dealing with deer collisions, speeding teenagers, or sleepy truckers passing through the mountain gaps. You see a lot of strange things on the midnight shift, but your brain learns to categorize them, until you encounter something that refuses to fit into any logical box. It was November of 2018, around 3:40 a.m. I was parked in the median of a highly isolated, winding stretch of Route 40 that cuts directly through a heavily forested ridge line. The fog was rolling in thick off the mountain, reducing visibility to maybe 30 feet. It was dead quiet. I was sipping a cup of coffee when I saw a vehicle approaching from the west. Through the dense fog, I could see its lights. But it didn't have two headlights like a normal car, nor did it have one like a motorcycle. It had three. Two standard, yellowish halogen headlights spaced apart, and a third, brilliant crimson light positioned dead center, slightly higher than the other two, right where the grille or the hood would be. As it drew closer, it was moving incredibly slowly, maybe 5 miles per hour. I assumed it was a local farmer with a modified tractor or a broken-down vehicle, so I flipped on my emergency blues and stepped out of my cruiser with my flashlight to direct them to the shoulder. The vehicle rolled out of the fog bank and stopped about 20 feet from me. It was an old, rusted utility van, completely matte gray with no license plates and no visible branding. The third red light wasn't a mechanical bulb. It was a perfectly smooth, glowing glass sphere embedded directly into the metal of the hood. And it wasn't steady. It was pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat. I walked up toward the driver's side window, shining my flashlight into the cab. The glass was heavily tinted, almost like it had been sprayed with black paint from the inside. I knocked sharply on the window and said, "State Police, roll down the glass." No one answered. The engine wasn't making a sound. No rumble, no exhaust fumes, nothing. It was completely silent. Then, I heard a noise from inside the back of the van. It sounded like someone scraping their fingernails against the metal walls, a frantic, desperate scratching. Suddenly, my police cruiser's radio went completely berserk, screaming with high-pitched static and feedback. At the exact same instant, the crimson light on the hood flared so bright it blinded me. I stumbled backward, covering my eyes. When I cleared my vision 3 seconds later, the road in front of me was completely empty. There were no taillights fading into the fog, no sound of tires accelerating, and no skid marks on the asphalt. I checked my dashcam footage when I got back to the station. The tape shows me stepping out of my cruiser, waving my flashlight at the empty fog, walking up to an empty patch of asphalt, knocking on thin air, and then falling backward. The van never existed on digital film, but I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. Every time I see a vehicle with a modified light or a mismatched bulb on the highway now, my hand instinctively goes to my service weapon.